At present, the Ride of the Kings is the most famous and prestigious custom of the year in the Czech Republic. This is the reason why, in 2009, it was included in the list of intangible assets of traditional and folk culture of the Czech Republic. The event has its traditional course of actions, performers, and date on which it is held. The custom has survived in its regional version in the southeast of the Czech Republic in the ethnographic area called Slovácko. Nowadays, the Ride of the Kings takes place in the towns of Hluk and Kunovice and in the villages of Skoronice and Volčnov. While the nature of the rite is the same in all communities, each of them has its own specific features, and there are minor differences distinguishing each one from the others. The Ride of the Kings is a ceremonial procession during which a group of young men rides on horses through a village or a town. The key figure is the king, a boy 10 to 15 years old, holding a rose in his mouth. The king is guarded by the page boys with unsheathed sabers. They are all dressed in women's ceremonial costumes. In front of them there are chanters, about 15 to 25 riders. On their way through the village, the entourage calls at the houses, and the riders chant at the residence, and viewers short praising and joking rhymes, reflecting good and bad features of their character, as well as their conduct in the community, which is a valid means of social regulation in the region. They receive donations in cash for their performance, which are collected either in the money box or in their riding boots. The donations usually cover the cost associated with the organization of the Ride of the Kings. The most important elements of the rite have their roots in the initiation and protective ceremonies, the aim of which was to secure a good harvest and farming prosperity using magical practices. In this respect, the elements of the nominated cultural asset are strongly linked to the past as, until the mid-30s of the past century, the Ride of the Kings in the Slovácko region was a common natural part of the Pentecostal period.
Velkou ctí, že mohu přivítat krále, jeho družinu a jeho rodiče tady v obřadní síni ve Vršnově.
The unique nature of the tradition of the Ride of the Kings helps the community to identify themselves with the cultural heritage of past times. Today, the social function of the Ride of the Kings prevails as it strengthens the cohesion and identity of the local community, representing the community's identity. The Ride of the Kings is considered an extraordinary event, the existence of which is perceived by the locals as a typical feature of their community, distinguishing it from others where the Ride of the Kings is not performed anymore. The family members of the king and his entourage also participate in the ceremony. The royal entourage selects a suitable performer as the king and asks his parents for their approval. If they are rejected, they turn to another family. If the boy's parents agree, the king is introduced to the public. For example, at Volčnov, this happens at a festive evening. The selected king participates in all the events organized by the royal entourage during spring. These are, for example, the weaving of pomlacka for Easter, the Easter Monday walk around the village, or erection of the decorated tree, a maypole, on the evening before the 1st of May. The approaching Ride of the Kings is also marked by making paper decorations for horses, preparing of traditional folk costumes, and other indispensable accessories of the king and his entourage. People with knowledge of the local traditions and with the necessary know-how of traditional handicrafts are involved in this process, in particular, women of all ages. Due to the representative and social importance of the rite, its current format has been extended by some elements, when the king and members of his entourage are introduced prior to the event.
Před tímto domem je hromada pojí, že ta panenka za hřích stojí, na krála, matičku, na krála. Tomuto pánovi velice šmakuje, břůško má veliké, ale mu pasuje. Na krála, matičku, na krála.
At Volchnov, this is done in the evening preceding the Rite of the Kings. All members of the royal entourage are introduced on that evening, as well as the girls in their age group. The evening culminates when the previous king passes the symbolic rule to the new one. In the morning, before the rite starts, the king, his entourage, and the girls of their age meet at a service in the local church. After the service, the mayor receives them at the village hall. Then all the riders go home, where their families have been decorating the horses with the help of horse owners and handlers, using all the decorations made. As soon as the horses are ready, the members of the royal entourage set off to the house of the king's parents. From there, the cavalcade leaves for the ride through the village. It is usually headed by the standard bearer, announcing the arrival of the king and his entourage. Then the chanters follow, and in the center of the procession there is the king and two page boys. The procession is closed by more chanters and riders. The ride through the village takes several hours, and when it is over, the riders return to their homes. In the evening, all of them meet again in the house of the king for a feast, which in the past, together with dance and music, marked the end of the event. The elements of the Rite of the Kings are continuously passed from generation to generation by spontaneous repetition. In a dynamic system of traditional folk culture, they are safeguarded and naturally restored by local communities in response to the present trend of cultural globalization. The Rite of the Kings is a specific feature of the communities in question, and by practicing it, they ensure the cultural and generational continuity in transferring traditional values. The Rite of the Kings is an important part of the traditional folk culture of the Czech Republic, as well as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity.